everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Be That Lawyer with Fretzin podcast. We are here every single week, twice a week, to make sure that you're being that lawyer, someone who's confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. I have such a treat for you. I'm going to just introduce Eddie in a minute, though. How you doing, Eddie?
I'm doing great.
All right. You got a nice frame there with the fireplace behind you and everything. It's really, really pretty. So you're in North Carolina now?
Yeah, I'm in Western North Carolina, about 40 minutes west of Asheville, in a town called Waynesville.
Okay. All right. Now everybody flooded to Asheville. So is that like a too populated area now? You got to kind of get outside of it?
Pretty much.
Right.
And I wanted something a little bit less crowded and more in the mountains. So
Okay.
Waynesville fit the bill.
Okay. And if you guys are picking up on that, that is a French accent that Eddie has here, right?
Exactly.
I like the French accent.
From Paris.
From straight from Paris. Listen, we're gonna talk about the whole Jamaican thing, but let's start off with our quote of the show. And I want you to give us the most Jamaican quote you can give us so we can launch this show with some laughs. So what is that?
Well, so you have a lot of Jamaican sayings, but the one we use in the law firm just to kind of get things done is "we run things," which, things in Jamaica, we drop the H. So it's things, we run things, right? And so it's a way of telling the team, get it done. We are in charge. We run things around here.
We run things. Do you think that would work on my teenager? We run
It
things.
hasn't worked with my kids. So
okay.
I
All right.
don't think
So all right, maybe it's better in the law firm, than at the for the teenager, the kid level. But listen, I'm just so happy that we're together. Eddie Dabdoub, everybody, is the managing partner of Dabdoub Law. He's in my Rainmaker Roundtable. We became fast friends a number of months ago, and I think we're having a good time. And I've been trying to get you on the show for a while, and you're just like the busiest guy I know. And I'm busy, and I'm just so happy and thrilled that we got together to do this. I'd love to have you give your version of how you kind of came to be and become, whether it's becoming a lawyer or building out and scaling your law practice. But give us the heads up on and welcome to the show again. I'm so happy you're here.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you. Finally, we were able to coordinate our schedules. So growing up in Jamaica, it was really interesting. It's a third world country, right? But I was educated in the British system because Jamaica, being a former colony, when the British left, we still had the educational system in place, which I think had done wonders for me. After graduating from high school, I came to the United States to attend undergraduate, and I always felt like law school was where I was going to end up going. Several reasons, but primarily my father is an attorney. He has law practice in Jamaica. My oldest brother is an attorney. My two younger sisters are attorneys. So we all kind of ended up becoming attorneys, doing different things, but being attorneys, right? And so you kind of just felt like, whether it's something in the water in Jamaica or just the upbringing, that we were all going to be attorneys. Like, you were built for this.
So no arguments at the dinner table, I'm assuming.
Exactly. Everything was hunky dory. No, it was.
I'm saying, like, you get that many
mom.
lawyers in a family together, there's going to be some arguments being made.
Completely. I mean, and so I'm the one that I just kind of step back and I just watch them go at it, including my father, who's now 82, and he doesn't back down from a fight. And I just look at the guy and I'm like, you're not going to stop at this point, So, but before law school, I always, this is important to me when I kind of retell how Dabdoub Law Firm has become this national firm that it is today. I always say that I always knew, even before law school, that I wasn't going to be an ordinary attorney where we just have law books and we're studying law and we're arguing in courts and we're doing good legal work for clients. I wanted to build something special. And that means I needed a business background. So I did an MBA before going to law school. It was an intensive MBA, 1 year, got it done before law school. I didn't want to be in school forever, so got it out the way in 1 year. And that taught you all sorts of things that they don't teach in law school. I don't know if it's changed, but when I was in law school, there was not a single class on how to run a law firm, how to scale a law firm, how to structure a law firm. right? So I did that pit stop before getting into law school.
Yeah. And then how, like, then start up, like, give us, like, then, all right, so now you're out of law school. You decide to go solo, or did you work with someone to get experience? How did that go?
Yeah, so I started as a law clerk in my second year of law school at a law firm that was handling disability insurance claims, which is what I do now. And initially, it was just a gig, right? It was just to get some legal experience as a second and third year attorney. But I handled a case for a man, and I ended up winning the case, and it had such a profound impact on me, and how transformative my legal work had been for him and his family. He still had young children. He couldn't work. He fell off a pole, and he injured his back pretty badly, and his disability insurance claim wasn't being paid. But when we won that case, I saw the difference it made to him individually and his family. And I said, I think this is a practice area I really can fall in love with. And so after graduating from law school, I was at a juncture where I was going to go back to Jamaica, join my father's practice, and kind of follow that career path, and then add that MBA that I had brought in to kind of make it something different than the traditional law firm it was and still is, or kind of, give it a go here for a bit. So I said, let me try it out here. And I joined that same law firm where I was a clerk as an associate now. And after 2 years, I said, this is really the practice area where I want to be in. But there's so much untapped potential in this legal market. And so I learned a lot from that firm legally, but I also learned a lot on the business side in terms of what they were not doing. And so I decided very early, maybe in my second year out of law school, I'm doing this and I'm going to do it on my own, and I'm going to build something from the ground up really special. Before I got to that point, I left that firm with one of the partners. We started a partnership, just the two of us. And then after a few years, that partnership dissolved, and I scaled my own law firm to over years, right? To being what it is today.
And now you've got a national practice with how many lawyers and how many staff?
Yeah, so we're 8. We're looking for another attorney. We're about 30.
Okay. So again, if you're an attorney with disability insurance background, like that would be great for you.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I'm looking for. And it's hard. It's hard. It's a niche practice.
Yeah. But there's something to be said about that too. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, my father, the late great Larry the lawyer, was one of the last general practitioners that did just about everything you can do, short of getting out of divorce while he could. But that's not what most lawyers are doing these days, right? Most lawyers are figuring out they've got to specialize, they've got to niche down, be known for something. And so you've really taken it to another level of really hyper focusing on that disability stuff and then building off of that. Can you talk a little bit about specialization and niching down and the value of that?
Absolutely. So I am a firm believer in find one thing that you're really good at and become great at it.
Yeah.
And be better than everybody else. I invested a ton of time in my early career in really becoming an expert in this area of the law. But the niche practice is such that I think there are probably less than 300 attorneys in the country that specialize in disability insurance claims for the plaintiff. So this created an obvious opportunity to not just limit myself geographically where we are located in Miami or in Florida, but the entire country. And so I think specialization is hugely important because it ties into how you brand yourself as an attorney, right? We even see some of these big PI firms that have multiple practice areas. And that works, right? It works for the Morgan and Morgans and those firms, obviously. But when you have an area that you've honed in on, if you can really hold yourself out as the expert and you're specializing and you're doing things in a way that other people can't, and then you add to that you're branding yourself that way, right?
Yeah.
And that's the important thing. You have to hold yourself out. So I want everybody to know, and I get calls from around the country that there's this Jamaican guy with a disability insurance law firm. And so that sticks in people's head because I've branded myself in that way. That's
Yeah.
how I differentiate myself from all the other attorneys, including attorneys in my practice area.
Yeah. And so I think, lawyers that are stuck between, litigation and transaction, or they're stuck in litigation, even being too broad of a space of saying, hey, I can litigate anything, where they're not really being thought of because of the scope is so large, so that, like, for example, Jackson Lewis, they focus on labor and employment, exclusively. All right. So that's, makes them very easy to remember, and just like what you're doing. But how do people transition out of being more general to a niche? Is there a secret sauce to that, in your opinion?
I think a lot of it is kind of just you fall into it to some extent, right? Like I do.
Okay.
But when you look at the legal market, it's really saturated, right?
Yeah.
In every state. And it's hard to find a practice area that's not very saturated. My practice area, for example, while it's not saturated, the learning curve is really steep and it's going to take years. So there's a barrier of entry of sorts that blocks attorneys who want to transition from a PI practice to disability insurance, because you think it's a regular type of insurance claim when it's anything but, and they usually get burned on a case or two and realize this isn't profitable, I want out. So I have a nice barrier of entry in my practice area, but I think what you want to try and do is to differentiate yourself by either finding a practice area that really, and there are a few out there, Medicare liens, there are other practice areas out there that attorneys can find that you may not make a $4 million fee, but if you structure the practice in a way where it's a well-oiled machine, you can get a nice revenue coming in from it.
Yeah.
So there are a few opportunities out there, but I think as time goes by, they're few and far between, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I get asked on a pretty regular basis, I'm not a lawyer. How did I get into working with lawyers? And the reality is that I wasn't going to push my chips in and be a specialist until I hit a certain threshold of my client base being, say, 85%. And at that point, when you realize, like, you're good at something, you get along with a group of people or an industry, and it actually makes more money and more sense to focus than to try to continue bringing in, for example, financial planners or accountants or other groups. And then to your point, you get that branding focus on one thing, and that's where you can separate yourself from the pack.
Indeed.
Yeah.
That's
So how
exactly
how
right.
about scaling? I mean, you're in Florida and you've got this practice, and you say, you know what, there's a lot more business if I can move it out and scale it out nationally. How does someone do that?
Yeah, so I think the first thing you really want to do, I remember when I started out doing this, I bought a gigantic map of the United States and I pasted it on a wall in the office. I did it myself. I climbed up on
I love that. I
chairs and
love
I
the
just kind
visual.
of pasted it. Oh, yeah. And that morning, everybody started coming into the office one at a time and started looking at this like, what the hell is he doing now?
Yeah.
And I started to put pin marks in different places. And so I first decided to target certain cities. And I did that by doing a deep dive into the research. And I think this is where the business background comes in. I started to look up population centers that are close to medical offices, to hospital clusters, the average median income for certain cities. So rather than just kind of having a shotgun approach and just trying to throw marketing money in 50 states, I started to target geographic regions that met my criteria for what my target client would look like.
Okay.
So for example, our most profitable clients are physicians, or especially surgeons who can't perform surgery anymore, but they can continue practicing medicine some way. They still qualify for total disability benefits under their disability insurance policy. So I wanted to target physicians. Well, where hospitals clustered, and what you tend to find is where you have like a cluster of hospitals, you tend to have very wealthy neighborhoods close by, because that's where all the doctors are.
Yeah.
And so I started there and then slowly started building out into other cities. But I had a spreadsheet, Steve, of every city in every state with population numbers, average income, education levels. There's so much information out there that you can read. You just have to first start by figuring out what are the data points that I need for my target client, and then work backwards and find that data.
Okay. And in your specific practice area, you don't have to be licensed in all those states, or you do?
So disability insurance, which is a high barrier to entry I was mentioning, is governed by a federal law called ERISA in about 90% of the cases, which means federal law I can practice nationwide on this. But it's a very complicated practice area. Most attorneys don't know it. So I am licensed in multiple states though. So and so are some of the other attorneys, which helps. But generally speaking, it's not a bar.
Okay.
Having a national practice.
All right. So you kind of do your research, you come up with where you're going to move into. How did you kind of get the team around this concept and like to buy into the idea that, hey, we're actually going to expand this thing nationally? And what was their response? What was their kind of reaction? Like, oh, there's Eddie going at it again, or what was like?
It's the we run things. This is what we're doing, guys, right? And I like to keep coming back to that. And I like to say, what is it that we want to be, right? We are the best disability insurance attorneys in the country. We are, in my opinion. And we have some of the biggest court wins around the country, not just in Florida. And we make good law for future clients, and we protect the disability insured by creating precedent. And so what I tell people in my office is, do we want to remain the best right here in Miami, or do we want to do bigger and better? And that's how I am wired. I cannot stop at enough. Enough is not a word in my vocabulary. If there is more, if there is a bigger market, if there are better cases, I'm going out there and I'm going to get them. And I like to say, on the days I'm frustrated, you'll hear me say things like, this is not the Mickey Mouse Club, right? Like, come on, we can do better.
Yeah. And so I'm kind of going down a bunch of different tracks here, but I think they're all important. You're motivated, you're driven, we run things. Okay. And now you've got this team of people under you of, 30 people. They have to buy into that culture. Like, this is a culture of unlimited growth and consistent growth. And that's not everybody's jam, right? So how are you developing, if we can shift a little bit to culture, how are you developing the people in the culture to make this work and continue to be the best firm you can be?
Yeah, great questions. I think it starts at the top, right? So I can't do this on my own. So what I have right beneath me is a core team of 4 to 5 people, partners and other core team members. And they buy into the idea that we want to grow, not for my personal benefit, but for everybody's benefit. And what they've seen is as we are growing, we're all growing together. They all have skin in the game on this.
Okay.
And so I look for a certain personality type, Steve. Somebody who buys into the idea that we can be bigger and better and still provide the high level quality legal representation. And that as we grow this law firm, they're going to grow personally in their careers, and also financially they'll have growth. And the important thing is they're all my age or younger, right? That core team.
Okay.
Because we have to grow together.
Okay.
And then once you have the core team in place, it kind of drips down from there, because they all have different roles and responsibilities. And so the staff, which the staff doesn't buy into the growth model, the idea of growth. They don't see it that way, right? They want to show up, they want to do their jobs, and they want to go home to their family. And that's completely understandable. Not everybody is going to be with you on this growth. And you don't need everybody to be with you on it. You need the core team in place. Then you need to set up systems and processes for the mechanisms and the rules you're creating for that growth to be facilitated. But in terms of the staff, what we've done is created a culture where it's a very laid-back environment. We have people walking around the law firm without wearing shoes. That's just how they just want to be casual, right? And so we encourage that. It's a very relaxed atmosphere. It's not structured by a law firm. When you look at my law firm, law books are not allowed in the law firm, right? There's no traditional bookshelf with law books. It looks more like a firm from Silicon Valley where blue concrete floors, glass walls separating offices, tons of open space. And so there's this massive collaborative environment. Staff is compensated more than the average, right? And so what I've done is when I find staff members that are really good and talented and I want them to stay, we sit down and we talk to them about it. We say, we think you've got something really special to offer the firm, and we'd love you to stay on for a very long time. Like, we want this to be your home. No, that's nice and dandy, you say, but then you have to show it to them. So what we then do is we pay them at a salary level that is significantly above the going rate for that position. Mm. Okay. Yeah. We have a compensation package that includes a very good 401k package. We cover 100% of insurance for them and their children. And so collectively, when you take care of your people, what you see is they don't want to leave. And what you get when people don't want to leave is you get longevity. And what longevity gives you is consistency. Turnover is a problem when you're trying to scale. So you have to stop the turnover. And the way you do it is you keep your people happy. You can't make everybody happy. So what ends up happening when you have that model in place, the people who can never be happy, they get weeded out just naturally. They end up getting pushed out. And then eventually you'll find somebody who fits that mold and you go, okay, they're here to stay.
Yeah. And then of course you're, as you said, taking care of them in a way where if they were meant to be, that they will stay, and then you get the consistency. But the other thing I want to go back to, because you mentioned this and I don't want to roll over it like it's anything. You mentioned like processes and systems that you have in place to make things sustainable and to make things more consistent. I have to believe that that improves the staff experience because they're not always on fire the way some law firms run.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I want to speak to that because I think that's a very important point. The first 2 years I practiced, I kind of locked myself in my office and I just got deep into the law books, learning everything I could about the practice area. But one of the things I would hear and observe is a constant fighting and screaming matches and bickering among the staff. I thought you were going to take care of this. No, he's mad at me because you didn't do it. And there's just this confusion and this bickering. And when I started the firm many years ago, I said, I'm creating departments and I'm putting assistants, paralegals in silos. And so right now I have about 5 different departments. And what ended up being really fantastic, and this kind of grew organically, right, is each department fits one stage of my case. My disability insurance case, like any case, even a PI case, has a lifeline. There's a starting point, there's stuff that gets done in between, and then there's an end point, right? Usually checking out where hopefully you have a check for the client and the accounting stuff that has to get reconciled. I have created 5 departments that track that life cycle of every case. And so my clients' cases aren't assigned to assistants, they're assigned to departments. And each department is staffed by assistants who are experts in that specific department. So my pre-litigation appeals department, right? You have these mandatory pre-lawsuit appeals you have to carry out. My assistants and paralegals in the appeal department can speak like attorneys on the legal requirements for appeals in disability insurance claims. No, they can't help me at all in the litigation department or in other departments. There is no overlap. They have no idea what goes on in that department, but they become micro experts in this area. And the efficiency level, Steve, goes through the roof. Wow. They become so good and efficient at it. And there is no bickering because there is no way. I thought this paralegal would handle that. Nope, that case is in your department. So it's on your lap. Yeah. So I don't have to deal with those issues, and the efficiency is just huge. So my big advice here to anybody listening to this is, if you want to scale a law firm, break away from the traditional model of assigning assistants and paralegals to attorneys. Instead, create different departments, and they can be tiny departments, whether it's 2 people in a department or 20. Create departments, train your folks to be experts in that specific department, and have cases go through the departments as their life cycle of the case carries through the firm.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, Eddie, and I'm not hearing this at all. I mean, I'm hearing this, I don't want to say for the first time, but kind of for the first time from you. And I don't know that there are many attorneys that think this way or have put it together that that may be a better model for how they run their teams than what they're traditionally being taught to do or what they've always done. So I just can't thank you enough for, you know, the culture and the scaling and the just the different take and spin on how you're running this thing. And I know it's going to be just gangbusters moving forward. I want to wrap up with a couple things. One is the is it a game changing book, The Rules of the Road? Is that a book that you're recommending, or is that a podcast?
Yeah, it's a book.
Okay.
It's I think every plaintiff's attorney should read that book, and
Okay.
it's more specific on how to handle cases in a way to get the job done for the client. But absolutely, it's a
All right.
great book.
All right. So that I want to just get that out of the way. So again, if you're on the plaintiff side, that's when you're going to want to at least research and maybe pull up on Amazon and see what it's all about. You know, I also want to take a minute because I don't really talk much on the show about my Rainmakers roundtables. You've been in it, I want to say just a short time, maybe 6 months. I mean, could be making that number up.
Yeah,
but
that's
I
right.
just, I mean, you're getting together with this group every month. Can you just share 30 seconds about what your experiences have been so far?
Right. So even at my level, when you think you know everything, when you think you've figured out how to run a law firm, right, you really don't, because when you get together with a group of people like we do, that Rainmaker group, and you put a question out there and you go, guys, I'm running into this specific issue. I haven't run into this before. Somebody else has, Steve. And that's what I really love about that group, because then we have like kind of like this brainstorming that's taking place, and a ton of ideas are just coming out of it. And so, yeah, I leave every meeting energized with great ideas and possible solutions to some of the obstacles that I am facing at the stage I am at, but other people have already kind of addressed and figured out how to solve. It's wonderful.
Well, I enjoy having you and I enjoy facilitating those groups. And we've got some phenomenal guest speakers coming up to educate us on their best practices as well. So, and anyway, everybody listening, if you're a managing partner or a Rainmaker and you want to find out more about the Rainmaker Roundtables, just email me at steve@fretzin.com. I'm always happy to take a 15, 30-minute call to just sort of evaluate if it's a good fit. Of course, have to thank our wonderful sponsors. We've got PIMCon coming up for those personal injury attorneys that want to take things to the next level on the marketing. You can sign up pincon.com and then use Be That Lawyer as your discount code to get a discount. Lawmatics, helping to, again, automate the way that you're running your law firm, and Get Staffed Up, getting you those full-time assistants and marketing folks to, again, take the crud off your plate and allow you to keep building business and doing the work. Eddie, if people want to learn more about your practice, they want to maybe apply for a job in disability insurance with you, what are the best ways for them to reach you?
Well, I think the easiest way with me traveling right now is email Eddie, EDDIE, at longtermdisability.net.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. And all that information will be in the show notes as well. Man, I'm just so happy that we got together. We were able to like coordinate this and get it together. That big shout out to your assistant who helped put that together. But this is just so great. And I'm just excited that you were able to come on and share your wisdom. I mean, so many great and honestly fresh ideas that lawyers need to hear, whether they're scaling a business now or they're looking to think about it in the future, or just, just thinking about specialization. We covered a lot of ground. So just thanks again, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I love speaking about this stuff. We could speak about it for hours, as we have, right? So
yeah,
awesome. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And thank you everybody for spending time with Eddie and I today on the Be That Lawyer with Fretzin podcast, helping you to be that lawyer. And just keep listening. Don't be shy about telling other lawyers about it. I mean, we are looking to continue to grow the audience and add as much value in the legal industry community as we can. So thanks everybody. Take care. Be safe, be well. We'll talk again soon.